Who is my neighbor? How do we decide who is our neighbor? Jesus gives us an example of a good neighbor in the parable of the Good Samaritan that defies the class expectations of his time. Out of curiosity, I looked up the definition of neighbor and found 4 definitions in dictionary.com that I thought I'd share with you. The first 2 are those that we are taught when first learning the meaning of the word. 1, a person who lives near another, or a person or thing that is near another. These 2 are closer to Jesus' definition of neighbor and should therefore be closer to our own definition as followers of Christ. They are: a neighbor is one's fellow human being, and a neighbor is a person who shows kindliness or helpfulness toward others. It can be relatively easy to be a good neighbor to those who are good to us, especially to those who are near to us. It's less easy to be a neighbor to those we don't know or to those who live further away. In a recent Sojourners article, a writer shares the experience of watching a woman at the grocery store being denied groceries due to a receipt mix-up and denial of a refund for a prior purchase. The clerk basically accused the shopper of trying to steal from the store. The author reports the story of the woman's embarrassment and her own response to the incident. And then later that week, the author attended something at her children's school and saw the same woman. This time she wonders at her initial response, thinking that now the woman appears to be a neighbor in need instead of the hustler she'd originally mistaken her for. This was a neighbor, and she had failed to show the neighbor love, she concluded. I'd recommend the whole article from Sojourners magazine, which you may be able to find online, as it reflects more fully on the commandment to love our neighbors and the power of the commandment. At this point in history, loving my neighbors seems like too small a reaction to what is going on in our country. It seems to be becoming more and more difficult to be a good neighbor, especially as we find out what our neighbors around the world are doing. How can we be a good neighbor to a country when our own country is dismissing their humanness? I don't have answers to these questions, but I wonder. When I see someone who I don't know, I do my best to greet them with kindness, and if they appear to be a transplant from some other place, I try to welcome them to the area. I try to let them know that they are welcome here. I am fortunate because I work with a nonprofit that supports our neighbors, whether they are foreign-born or American-born. I believe that we are called by God to do more than greet others with kindness, and yet it is difficult to know how to be effective neighbors to those in need. At this time in history, there are ways we can all help others here in Pittsburgh. Agencies like mine, Literacy Pittsburgh, need volunteers to work with individuals, educating them in English, reading, or math to help them get better jobs and shape their own lives. Hello Neighbor is one of the refugee resettlement agencies local to Pittsburgh that has been deeply affected by the withholding of payments by the federal government for services already rendered. They are currently supporting 500 plus families in our area and operating without the funding they were promised by the federal government. They urgently need funds to continue to do the work of Christ, of welcoming and supporting our neighbors. Other refugee resettlement agencies have been similarly affected and need our monetary support. If you have time and are able, there are adult students waiting who could use a personal tutor to help them meet their goals. These are 2 ways that we can all be good neighbors to more than simply those who live near us. I believe we are called to do as much as we can.